Welcome to the Heroic Investing Show. As first responders, we risk our lives every day. Our financial security is under attack. Our pensions are in a state of emergency. A single on-duty incident can alter or erase our earning potential instantly and forever. We are the heroes of society. We are self-reliant and we need to take care of our own financial future. The Heroic Investing Show is our toolkit of business and investing tactics on our mission to financial freedom.
Welcome to the Heroic Investing Show, a podcast for first responders, members of the military, veterans, and anyone looking to improve their financial future and gain some freedom with their time. We teach America's heroes how to build passive income, build their startup business, and safely grow wealth through real estate and other alternative investments. We help current and prior first responders put protections, systems, and a team in place to help them build a life where they can focus on their passion, that service or product that they are uniquely gifted to share with others, making the world a better place for all of us. My name is Gary Pinkerton, and I co-host this show with Jason Hartman. This is episode 218, episode 218. Our guest for today is Dr. John Paitakes. John has more than 40 years of experience in the criminal justice system, working as Assistant Chief Probation Officer of the Somerset County, New Jersey Probation Department, and he is also a past president of the New Jersey Criminal Justice Educators Association, and he's a member of the New Jersey Parole Advisory Board. He has become a professor and taught for many years, currently teaching criminal justice at Rider University, and he has also taught at Seton Hall and Rutgers universities here in New Jersey, as well as teaching at his local New Jersey Police Academy. He's author of a book called 50 Years Working in Criminal Justice that his students read. During our show, he has some great insights about how to break into the highly competitive career field of law enforcement. He talks a lot about New Jersey, but I believe his message is useful, is applicable across the country. We also get into his thoughts after a very long career in criminal justice about how that we can set up inmates to be more successful being rehabilitated back into society, which of course is the goal for all but the most wicked of those that are inmates. So I think you'll really enjoy this. It went a little bit long, so without further ado, here is my guest, Dr. John Paitakes. Well, heroic investors, welcome back. We have a great show lined up for you today. I know often recently here we've had active duty members of the military, retired members of the military. That, of course, is my bent and my bringing friends and colleagues and people of similar interest. However, we've started and throughout we've tried to stay consistent with having the voice from first responders as well as members of law enforcement. And that is the focus for our talk today. Today we're going to talk with Dr. John Paitakes. And Dr. Paitakes has taught at both everything. He has been basically everywhere in my current stomping ground. So he's taught at Rutgers University. He taught for, I think he said 20 years at Seton Hall, and has taught at police academies here in our local area, and lives not too far from me. So it's a true pleasure to have a local friend on the show. Dr. Paitakes, thank you for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. Glad to be there.
Wonderful. So you're also author of a great book from a couple of years ago called 50 Years Working in Criminal Justice. So I'll just use that title as kind of an opening discussion. So you had 50 years in that world. Can you take us back to a little bit before that, and what got you into criminal justice?
Yeah. Well, actually, it wasn't planned. My father had a restaurant and cocktail lounge. I worked through high school, part-time in college, and then even after college for about 6 months. And then he sold the business, and I was unemployed. And somebody said, I think they're hiring in the court system in probation. There's a temporary opening. So I took the position, and they said, well, look, until you take the civil service exam, we're only going to keep you temporary. If you don't pass it, we'll have to let you go. Well, as time went on, I found it very interesting dealing with, police officers, juvenile delinquents, adult offenders, and all the people in criminal justice. I passed the exam, and that turned out to be over a 25-year career in the Somerset County court system, and I worked my way up to assistant chief probation officer before I retired from there. So that's how I got in. Actually, it wasn't planned, but I found it interesting, and it spurred a full career in my first career anyway.
That's fantastic. So when did you get the PhD and pursue higher education?
Well, I had the undergraduate, and then I got a master's working part-time while I was working in probation, and the federal government funded part of that under this law enforcement education plan, which that came about in the 70s, where they put out a lot of money trying to encourage people working in criminal justice to become more educated. So that was a good opportunity. I got the master's, and I also was teaching at a community college part-time one night a week. And I found that interesting, and I thought, well, geez, as a second career, teaching full-time at a university might really be interesting. So usually the university prefers a PhD. So then I went on my own evenings part-time. Getting a PhD took me several years, but that's kind of what motivated me. And then it helped me once I retired from probation to secure a full-time position at Seton Hall University. And that's how that happened.
At Seton Hall, okay.
Right.
And what did you focus on? I mean, you said 20 years, right? That's a long time teaching in criminal justice. That's awesome. What did you focus on one topic? Was it an entire, like a major, or how did that go?
Well, it was major. And now, again, I was the new person then. There was existing staff there that had been there for years. So when you're a new faculty member in a university, they'll pick your areas of expertise, but you'll also get assigned a lot of different courses that perhaps you hadn't taught. So I really initially focused on community corrections, which is probation and parole, and then corrections, which was the jails and prisons. That was a lot of my background. But again, I taught a lot of other courses like criminology, behavioral sciences, principles of research. So again, any course that, perhaps other staff didn't want to teach, the new person got it. But the good thing was that, it gave me a broad-based background, and I created a couple courses too, like a careers course for students interested in careers in criminal justice, and also juvenile delinquency courses and human resource courses. So over a period of time, I ended up teaching 20 different courses over the 20 years, But
Wow.
Again, it was good. It was a good experience, and it helped me out a lot.
So what trends did you see over that 20-year period of time, either in students who were interested or in the field itself of employment coming out of college?
Yeah. Okay. Well, in the field itself, you take law enforcement, and I've been around for a while, so I remember how law enforcement was in the 60s and 70s. That was a very tumultuous time. We had a lot of demonstrations, the Vietnam War, a presidential assassination, Martin Luther King assassinated, and so there were a lot of demonstrations. And when law enforcement came out, in many occasions, they came out in force. They came out with water hoses, dogs, a lot of physical force or whatever. We've changed that a lot. Over a period of time, we realized that wasn't the best way to handle a lot of that. Kent State University, a number of people got killed. That was when they called in the National Guard, and, it turned into a really wild scene. But anyway, if you fast forward to today, look at NYPD in New York City. There's demonstrations all the time. You see very few arrests, all right? Police training has increased significantly. The educational levels of police officers has increased, much more professionalized. So when there's demonstrations in New York, take a look at them next time. They show them on TV, and they petition off the crowds. They bring in the horses. They maintain control for the most part. Very few arrests. So in law enforcement, I've seen that trend. We've come a long way, I think, there's still a lot of things to do or whatever, but the training has increased at the academies. The educational level of police officers, especially in New Jersey, has increased significantly. And so today, to become a police officer in New Jersey, very competitive. Even with the college degree, you have a lot of applicants, and of course, the pay and benefits are very good also,
Right, that might be one of the drivers.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And then the other fields that I'm familiar with is probation and parole. And again, historically, when I started, the salary levels were very low. But over a period of time, through negotiations, they came up, and it requires a college degree. And so the probation and parole are good in between careers. Like if you don't really want to be a police officer in the, in the field, are on the road, probation and parole deals with convicted people, monitoring their behavior. It's really more of a counseling kind of thing, although you do have the powers of arrest over your people. So that area has also become more professionalized and very competitive, So that's improved considerably. And then fast forward to corrections, the other part of the system, the jails and prisons. Well, what's happening now as compared to the 60s and 70s? That was a big lockup period, all right? And so strict penalties, strong drug laws. We filled up all the jails and prisons, building more prisons. Now what are we trying to do? We're reducing the population in the prisons, okay, with alternative programs and realizing that a longer term in a prison, unless somebody's very dangerous or aggressive, lessens their chances for rehabilitation in many cases, So we're doing a lot more reentry and, vocational training, educational training in the institutions and helping them prepare for when they come out. So that's been a big change, probably in the last 10 years,
I was reflecting as you were talking about that and, in my comment that, that higher compensation or better benefits, brings more competition. It absolutely does, but it also brings higher quality individuals, right? And it's, I was reflecting that we used to use brutality both in the prisons and in demonstrations and lots of arrests, as you mentioned. It's harder to do what we're currently doing today. I believe, it takes more patience. It takes somebody with a lot more control, more training. It's just like being a parent, right? It's much easier to say, when you tell your child to do something and they ask why, you just say, because I said so. Like, that's the easy way out. Same thing when I was in command of my submarine. If I wanted to be lazy or needed it done fast, I just said, because that's the way it is, right? And that's harder. That's easier. Yeah. But it results in long-term negative results, right? That you have to dig your way back out of. And I agree with you that by and large, my impression is that the police forces in correction or on the streets have done a tremendous job of getting rid of that reputation, also actually earning it, and not having the incidents. But it doesn't go without challenge, right? We have had, some shootings here and there that have been questioned. Oh, yeah. We were talking about that a little bit off air. If you wouldn't mind, kind of go into your thoughts again about what the public sees and what potentially is, really going on in the background.
Well, yeah, I don't want to call it fake news. I call it facts and fictions. And, yeah. There are certain themes out there that clearly need clarification. And so one is like, once a criminal, always a criminal. No, that's not true. I've interviewed thousands of people in prison, and those who are really motivated and take advantage of every program, you can get your high school diploma. You can even get some college courses if you're well-behaved and you qualify while in prison, okay? There's counseling programs, etc. So if you take advantage of all that, and certainly not all of them do, but you can turn it around. So that's not completely true, as far as that goes. And obviously a lot depends on the motivation of the person who is incarcerated. Jails and prisons, even some are newer than others, are not nice places to be or whatever for the most part. But if you're there, and I tell inmates the same thing, take advantage of every single program and try to make the best out of a bad situation, okay? Probation and parole are a slap on the wrist. Now, that's another misconception. And again, I worked in both those fields a long time, and I've heard it from the public sometime. Oh, that's nothing that they're on probation. Well, my best way to explain that is if you give them the resources and, reasonable caseloads, yes, we do have better than a 50% rehabilitation there. So in other words, the average caseload is maybe 40 offenders, okay, and you'll have time to monitor them. But if I give you a caseload of 100 or 150, which some jurisdictions do, then it's going to be very difficult to have any meaningful impact on them, So again, when we give them the resources, they do become effective. And again, even the people coming into those fields have become more educated and better trained. So, it's another, misconception. Another one is, police use brutality on a regular basis. No, that's not true. And again, if the only source you get is on the news at night, a 5-minute thing of showing an officer using physical restraint, you say, oh, geez, that looks like brutality. No, but you don't know what happened beforehand. Maybe the person resisted arrest or pushed the officer. or tried to leave the scene. Now, granted, there are a few bad apples in any discipline, in any field, okay? And so you try and weed them out as soon as you can. Or the best bet is to screen the best people coming in. And as you and I talked before, in New Jersey, and I can't speak for every state, but in New Jersey, it's very competitive to be a police officer, okay? You have a lot of people applying anytime there's an opening, all right? The salary levels are very good. The average salary of a police officer in New Jersey is $95,000 a year. Okay, wow. And that's not including benefits and retirement packages and health plans, et cetera, which is also very good. But and of course, we can afford to be selective. Okay, so what I tell students, and a lot of my students are interested in criminal justice, I say, well, look, you got to have more than just the college degree now, okay? Because there's hundreds or thousands of other students with college degrees. What else can you add to your resume? Do you speak another language? Do you have great technical and computer skills? Do you have some further certifications? And so that's what's happening, and I see it, in my students that are really sincere about it, and the ones that are getting hired. So that's how you professionalize a force. So again, I'm very optimistic about law enforcement, and I think overall, they do a really good job, considering the scrutiny that they're under today, which is another issue, right?
Right.
Everybody's out there with cameras and cell phones, right?
That's exactly what I was going to say, is that, I believe that one of the big changes is that police officers and everyone in public service, as well as the rest of us, are starting, maybe not my generation, but my son's generations, they grew up assuming that there's somebody watching somewhere and somebody recording somewhere, right? And that control, that provides better behavior. When on my ship, when we would monitor things like reactor plant startups or people driving in and out of port, important places where we have a monitor sitting around, they're performing better than they are in the middle of the night when they think no one's watching, right? And so with cameras, installed department cameras, inside police cars, I'm sure that helps. And it doesn't have to come from a perspective that they're always watching us, kind of a negative thing. We should just, I tell people, you should just assume, like my kids already grow up and that generation already has, the feeling of, just assume somebody is watching it and someday it's going to get on the news, right? And so if you live your life that way with somebody always watching, it kind of holds you accountable to your own morals to not kind of slip up, I believe. Yeah,
and what I tell them is, look, if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, don't worry about it. And even if they are taking pictures, and in fact, like you said, a lot of times it goes to their benefit, that the camera was on. A number of years ago, you might recall when the state police were, considered doing a lot of profiling, this and that. They put cameras on all the state police cars, okay? That went on for a long number of years. And you know what they found? That actually, in many cases, and I think over the majority of them, it really defended the police officer better because it showed that the person resisted arrest or went for a weapon or whatever, and it was all on camera.
Right.
So, I think, we agree on that.
Yeah, I think we're certainly in agreement. and so I believe all of the trends are positive that we see with law enforcement. Now, maybe not on pensions and the strength of pensions or the strength of the fund underlying them or something like that, but I'm proud to say that I'm friends with many law enforcement officers and firefighters here in the New York, New Jersey area, and I think we just kind of gravitate towards each other. I gained a lot of friends in the Tunnel to Towers race for attending that for several years, and just incredible people, patriots just like those of us in military uniform. So, I think the cream rises to the crop, but I also believe that they're being attracted, just like you said, by benefits, which makes it works, right? It's putting the right people in the right places.
Yeah, that helps. But it's what I said to them too. It's like a calling. When you go into any of those criminal justice fields, or even the firefighters or whatever, most of these people work more than the 35, 40 hours. You know what I'm saying? They're doing a lot of extra time or whatever that they're not getting paid for. So when people say, "Oh, they make a lot of money," whatever, I know a lot. My friends working in law enforcement and criminal justice positions, most of them work much more than the 40 hours. They could be out on a social function, out of uniform, and something happens, boom, they jump in, maybe people don't see enough of that. You certainly hear about a lot of the negative stuff, but every day in New York City, they're jumping in the Hudson River, saving somebody or rescuing somebody from a car accident, et cetera. So.
Yeah, so I think it's in alignment, is what I would say, with the efforts that the officers put out, and it hasn't always been that way. And that has resulted in a lot of good people saying, listen, I love the service. It's a calling to me, but I can't feed my family, or I can't provide the lifestyle that I want for my family. Same thing happened in the military for years. Officers and our enlisted force are pretty well paid nowadays in the military. And so that's not the reason why people leave if they leave, at least not right now.
Right.
Gosh, so you wrote a great book. I'm not sure we've covered too much of the content of it. Are there some key points in there that you wanted to bring up?
Well, part of the book was biographical, several chapters, just showing how my, career moved along or whatever, figuring that would be helpful to students in criminal justice, and maybe they can mirror some of that if they'd like. And then I did stuff on, changes in the system that we spoke about somewhat. And then the best part was how to best prepare for it. There's different ways people get hired, some through civil service, some for direct hire, some for political appointments. But if you don't fit any of those categories, like many of us didn't in the past, then you have to do all those extra kinds of things. And I give examples of joining organizations that relate to that, volunteering, doing internships, form a mentor with somebody, whether it's your college professor in criminal justice or local chief of police. So it gives some good tips for people interested in getting into the field, and then the last appendix is a list of well over 100 different criminal justice careers that people may not be aware of, And
Wonderful.
So I think it'd be helpful to, those interested in the field.
So how do they find it? Available on Amazon?
Yeah, it's on Amazon.com, or Barnes & Noble carries it, and not in their bookstore, but you can get it online. The title is just 50 Years in Criminal Justice, and it'll show up. It's the only book with that title.
Wonderful. How can they contact you if looking for more information?
Yeah, you have my email address because I think it's on the book.
Perfect.
Too.
So
you can use my email address if anybody wants to pursue anything further. And I even give some guest talks, sometime, to different organizations. And so, time permitting, I'm happy to do that.
Okay. Well, Dr. John Paitakes, thank you so much for joining us. And if you would like to reach further out to him, it's PAIT@optonline.net. PAIT@optonline.net. And Doc, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Be sure to check out the show's specific website and our general website, hartmanmedia.com, for appropriate disclaimers and terms of service. Remember that guest opinions are their own, and if you require specific legal or tax advice or advice in any other specialized area, please consult an appropriate professional. And we also very much appreciate you reviewing the show. Please go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio or whatever platform you're using and write a review for the show. We would very much appreciate that. And be sure to make it official and subscribe so you do not miss any episodes. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.